So we have an update on former WWE Women's Champion Charlotte Flair and her recent absence from WWE television, and it's because Charlotte Flair has indeed tested positive for COVID-19. Charlotte Flair took to Twitter last night after Raw went on the air and revealed that she's been off WWE television recently because she tested positive for the coronavirus. Flair says that she's been at home resting. She said, quote, "I know everyone has been wondering where I have been. I tested positive for COVID and have been at home resting. Thank you everyone for your love," and then put some emojis of the Queen symbol. Now, there's no word yet on when Charlotte Flair will be back. It was noted previously there had been some talk of her possibly appearing on Smackdown's Friday Night Smackdown on Fox this coming week. Flair, of course, had been rumoured to be in a WrestleMania 37 match with Raw Women's Champion Asuka. There's no word on if she's going to be added, of course, because last night it was revealed on Monday Night Raw that Rhea Ripley will indeed be facing Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship on the grandest stage of them all. So certainly it's going to be interesting when it comes to that. Now, this is significant, and I wanted to talk about this as well. Obviously, it's significant news that Charlotte Flair has tested positive for COVID-19, but it was also significant because yesterday, coming off of the back of Andrade being released by the company, and I am going to do a video on that. I know I'm a little bit behind on that one, but I am going to do a video on it. I wanted for it to wait a couple of days to see if we actually got any more information when it came to Andrade, and we have. We've got far much more information than was originally released when it came to Andrade, when it comes to his WWE release. But yesterday there was a lot of bizarre misinformation going around with Charlotte Flair and if she had a part to play in the Andrade release from WWE. And essentially what it was, there was a screenshot or a screen grab going around on social media, and it was on one of those message boards like 4chan or something like that. I mean, a ridiculous message board. And it was this made up story where it said that essentially WWE gave Charlotte Flair an ultimatum to allow Andrade to be released from the company. They said that Andrade could be released from the company if Charlotte Flair was willing to sit out WrestleMania. They thought that because Charlotte Flair wouldn't want to miss out WrestleMania, she would say no. But in reality, she agreed to sit out WrestleMania, and that's how Andrade was granted his release. To be honest, when I saw it, I never believed it anyway, because who on earth would conduct business like that? That's one. The story itself was just ludicrous. Two, I mean, look, where's your information coming from? Where's your information coming from? Coming from a message board that's not crediting any reputable source, any reputable website, any reputable journalist, anyone. It's just saying, well, actually, hear it from me first and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's faceless information, and obviously it wasn't true. It wasn't true. Numerous outlets and sources, whether it was Sean Ross Sapp, Dave Meltzer, Wrestle Talk, Fightful, Wrestling Inc., Sportskeeda, they all came out and said, it's a load of BS. That isn't true. That isn't what's happened. Nevertheless, it ran roughshod over social media. It really did. So many people saying, I can't believe this. Charlotte Flair, what a great person. She helped Andrade get released. She helped facilitate what he wanted, and now he's out of the company. What a great fiance, and all this kind of stuff. And it was a perfect example, and it was a perfect case study of part of the problem, I guess, when it comes to social media and it comes to wrestling journalism and wrestling information, is that there is so much misinformation, and the days of having any credibility when it comes to reporting information is gone. That people nowadays, when it comes to social media, when it comes to wrestling information and news on social media, and just, I guess, in general, they're no longer interested in facts. They're no longer interested in, okay, this is what you're saying, how can you prove it? How can you prove it? That's gone, years ago. And maybe and to be honest, this isn't anything new. This isn't anything new when it comes to social media. It's certainly gotten worse over the course of the last 4 or 5 years when it comes to social media. But previously, if you had an outlandish claim or an outlandish story, or any story, or any kind of information that you were posting on social media, people would ask, or even back before that in the days of print media, people would say, okay, that's a story. Where's your proof? Where is your proof? And this isn't a court of law. This isn't anything like that. This isn't a legal system. But where's your proof? Where's your evidence? Where's your photographs? Where's your screenshots? Where is anything? And if you don't have anything like that, then it goes by reputation. It goes by what stories have you broken in the past? What stories have you spoken about in the past? What relationships do you have with various companies and various wrestlers and all that kind of stuff? And nowadays, that doesn't happen. And I think, yes, we should hold the people that report these fake stories and the people that spread these screenshots and spread these just, massive misinformation stories around, we should hold them accountable. But we also have to hold ourselves accountable, I think. And that, the readers and the viewers are also part of the problem here. You have to, when you read anything, and I always say this to anyone that subscribes to this channel, anyone that follows me on social media, is when you read something, you can't just believe it because at face value. You have to do a bit of critical thinking yourself. You have to look at something and say, do I believe that? And okay, that's what they're saying. I'm going to do some reading myself. I'm going to look on social media. I'm going to look at all of these other websites and look at all of these other journalists and all of these other sources and see if this is accurate myself. I'm not going just to blindly agree with something because I've seen it written down. And I think it's almost this condition that for years and years when it comes to journalism, when it comes to print journalism, so newspapers or on television or stuff like that, there was such a higher standard of things that were reported that you had to believe it. You had to believe it because they're credible, reputable news sources. And now with social media, that standard has been lowered because there's just so much information. One of the biggest problems with social media in general is that there is an overabundance of information out there, and it's really difficult to weed through all of that and find fact through fiction. And this is just another example of it. And it was so bizarre. It really was so bizarre. So when Charlotte Flair came out and posted this yesterday that she's tested positive for COVID-19, I think in reality probably she didn't want to release that information, and nor should she have to. This is her own private medical information. Throughout the whole pandemic, this has been a really another talking point, as people saying, or WWE should reveal if someone's tested positive for COVID-19, or they should reveal if they've tested positive for the coronavirus. And every time that comes up, I always say, no, they shouldn't. It's their own private medical information. It's up to them. If they want to come out and be public with it, that's fine. But in the same way that if you or I tested positive for anything, it's ultimately your own decision whether or not you reveal that to anyone, public figure or not. So I would think probably Charlotte Flair and WWE's hand has been forced by all of this speculation when it comes to Andrade and when it comes to the release, and then when it comes to this story that was floating around yesterday that Charlotte had helped Andrade get released and the company had given her an ultimatum. I guess probably she had discussions with WWE, and Andrade said, look, this is ludicrous. Okay, I'll just reveal that I've tested positive. It's no big deal, but I'm forced to share and disclose my own medical information because people have just... their minds have gone crazy on social media. They've decided that something is fact without looking at any of the facts and not waiting for any more information to come out. I mentioned about the Andrade video I'm going to do later. I purposely held off and said, you know what, I want to wait a couple of days. I know it's easy to be reactionary, and sometimes I'll hold myself accountable. I've been reactionary on this channel with some stories. But you have to learn from it, and you have to be a critical thinker when it comes to any news story, not just pro wrestling. So I think she came out and her hand and WWE's hand was slightly forced by that. As far as what do I think she'll do for WrestleMania or going forward, I think the reason, this again is a tangent. I think that Asuka and Charlotte Flair probably was the original plan for WrestleMania. But again, we don't know the timeline of when Charlotte Flair tested positive. We're about 3 weeks away from WrestleMania now. Now, she wasn't on television last week, so it would lead one to believe she probably tested positive at some point last week. Again, I don't know. That's speculation on my part. So, realistically, she could be back for Friday Night Smackdown this week. She could be back for Raw next week. But it gives you only a couple of weeks to work with in terms of a build for WrestleMania. I would think probably they put Rhea Ripley in there with Asuka, and they said, look, we can start the build for the Women's Championship match there. We can get that ball rolling. And then when it comes to Charlotte, we can add her in later on, but we've already started the build to WrestleMania. And frankly, we've had Charlotte Flair on Raw a couple of weeks ago saying that she wanted to face Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship. Of course, they were tag team champions. I would assume even when Charlotte Flair returned in December, the plan was to eventually have her face Asuka at WrestleMania. Without a shadow of a doubt, because it's Charlotte Flair and it's WrestleMania season, she will be involved in a championship match at WrestleMania. Now, for what championship that is, we don't know. Last year it was the NXT Women's Championship. Year before that, it was both the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship. It's been the SmackDown Women's Championship. It's been the Raw Women's Championship. Charlotte Flair, throughout her entirety of her WWE career, when it comes to WrestleMania, is involved in a championship match. She never hasn't been involved in the championship match, and I don't expect that to change this year. So whether that's the Raw Women's Championship, whether that becomes a triple threat, which I think is probably the most likely outcome and scenario here, considering the history she has with both competitors in there. Of course, Asuka She has a ton of history with her, you know, whether it's at WrestleMania 34, she ended Asuka's undefeated streak. She beat her just before WrestleMania 35 to win the Smackdown Women's Championship to be added into that winner-take-all triple threat match. Obviously, she was a tag team partner and tag team champion with her last year, so she's got a ton of history with Asuka. And when it comes to Rhea Ripley as well, of course, Charlotte Flair has a lot of history with Rhea Ripley as well. She defeated her last year at WrestleMania to become the NXT Women's Champion. They had a couple of matches on NXT when she was actually involved in the match where Charlotte Flair lost the NXT Women's Championship in that triple threat match with Io Shirai and Rhea Ripley at NXT TakeOver in Your House last year. So she's got a ton of history with both competitors. So I think it's probably most likely she gets added into the Raw Women's Championship match. That becomes a triple threat match. It's a possibility she gets added to the match on SmackDown. I think when it comes to the SmackDown Women's Championship match at WrestleMania, I mean, talk about something that's been so mismanaged and mishandled. I think when Bianca Belair won the Royal Rumble, when she won the Women's Royal Rumble in January, there was all of this optimism and hope that we were really going to see something special. The Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair match, no doubt, can be an absolutely, and it will probably be a fantastic match if that singles match happens. But I think everyone was expecting a really good storyline, a really strong storyline, and a real indication of why WWE is, they do have the best women's division in the world. They do. I know I'm very, very high on praising Impact Wrestling's Knockouts division because I think that's very strong. And even in recent weeks, I know I've been critical, but AEW have been making strides when it comes to their women's division. Still nowhere near, but WWE has the strongest women's division in the world. And I think it's been really disappointing from my point of view, and I think a lot of fans' point of view, that this massive, or what could have been this real big massive main event program on SmackDown for the SmackDown Women's Championship has been dominated by Reginald, a man, and the Women's Tag Team Champions Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, when WWE doesn't give a damn about those Tag Team Championships anyway, or Tag Team Wrestling in general anyway. The one time of the year they decide they want to actually feature the Women's Tag Team Championship is into a SmackDown Women's Championship storyline in WrestleMania season. You kidding me? It's ludicrous. It's almost like they don't trust Sasha Banks or Bianca Belair to deliver a compelling storyline, which is nonsense, which is absolute nonsense. And I don't care for it. I really don't care for it. So I think there is a possibility that Charlotte Flair could get added in to the SmackDown Women's Championship picture heading into WrestleMania, because indications might be that maybe they're not content with how that Bianca Belair Sasha Banks storyline is going. But that's only their own fault. They've only got themselves to blame for that. That's not the performers. It's the creative. The creative there has just been awful. I mean, you have to have an immense talent to mess that one up, and they have. They really have. And you know, as I mentioned, coming out of the Royal Rumble, there was a lot of excitement about Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks at WrestleMania, and it feels like just with the bad creative, it's been slowly eroded away. And now I'm not as hyped on the match. I think the match will be fantastic, but there isn't that buzz about it because it's just been bad television surrounding it. So I could see Charlotte Flair being added into that. The only thing that I would think might make that unlikely is that it looks like, and we'll do a video on this later as well, but it looks like the Universal Championship match is going to be changed into a triple threat match. I know obviously Roman Reigns defended successfully the Universal Championship against Daniel Bryan at Fastlane, but obviously there was the Edge heel turn. He attacked Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns with a steel chair, said you ruined it. It looks very likely, and multiple reports have come out to say that Daniel Bryan will be added to the main event of WrestleMania for the Universal Championship. It is going to be Roman Reigns versus Edge versus Daniel Bryan. So I don't know if they would have the top two championships in the males and women's division be both triple threat matches. I think that feels a little bit overkill. They might just do that on the Raw side. So I have no doubt Charlotte Flair will be added into a title match, whether it's for the Raw Women's Championship, the SmackDown Women's Championship. Heck, she might even go for the NXT Women's Championship. Who knows? She might challenge the winner of Io Shirai versus Raquel Gonzalez from NXT TakeOver that week as well. There's certainly a lot of possibilities, but we know now the reason why Charlotte Flair has been off of television. Not anything to do with Andrade, not anything to do with his release, or not any of this misinformation or BS that's been flowing around. It's that she's tested positive for COVID-19. And I've been speaking all about the ramifications about all of this and WrestleMania, but ultimately the thing that is the most important here, of course, is Charlotte Flair's health and safety. So obviously, we wish her a speedy recovery. I hope, and I'm sure that she'll recover fine and she'll be back on WWE television sooner rather than later, considering it's WrestleMania season as well. But the most important thing is that she makes a speedy recovery. So get well soon, Charlotte Flair. Hopefully, we'll see her on television soon. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Charlotte Flair revealing she's tested positive for COVID-19? What do you think she's going to be doing at WrestleMania? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below, all opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too, really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get to people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to WrestleNews365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.